If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor look too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are done, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 40 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Target acquired.
Eagle 1, first strike. You have permission to engage the target.
Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
And welcome back, guys. We are back again. It's been just a few hours since I saw most of you guys, and that's going to be awesome. I cut the intro a little bit short. We were getting close enough to time to start. Kat may or may not wander along. I think she had a minor change to her schedule, so we may be without our normal Kat. But never fear, I've got us covered. This is real-time footage of Kat putting up with us around here. So just want to, just thought I'd share that picture of Kat backstage, and we're just having some good times today. Mostly we're going to talk about Killdozer today as Killdozer week draws to a close. We have to remember Marvin Niemeyer and A Man Pushed Too Far. Really far. And I do. Yeah, I need to balance out my thing there. Yeah. And I will. I just haven't brought anything else in from the gun room. But yeah, so Mr. Marvin Niemeyer, it's this week in Granby, Colorado, a few years ago, there was an incident. Man pushed too far. Local government being a bully. All the things that happened, and he had enough. And what did Mr. Marvin do? Well, if you don't know the legend of Marvin Niemeyer, Marvin was a welder. And Marvin fashioned himself a tank. We all hail Killdozer. And Killdozer was a Komatsu, made armor by welding half-inch plate steel into boxes and then filling that with concrete. And he basically destroyed a town, although he didn't touch a building that wasn't someone that had done him wrong. He didn't harm anyone but himself. And in the end, the only life that was lost was that of Mr. Marvin Niemeyer. So all hail this week, Killdozer. Killdozer, who was held, originally, for those of us who were paying attention at the time, Mr. Niemeyer was portrayed as a psychotic man who had an emotional break, disassociated with society, all kinds of things. There have been 2 documentaries about this, Tread being one of them. Both of those documentaries were actually written by a guy who had a personal beef with Mr. Niemeyer and has controlled the narrative to some degree. And as things have come out, Mr. Niemeyer was probably not psychotic. He did not have a psychotic break. I believe that he just he made a decision. He didn't really see a way out. He felt that God had shown him the way to avenge the wrongs that had been done to him. And he made some mistakes along the way, but overall, respect to Mr. Marvin Niemeyer. As all things happen with government, and the reason I bring this up, and the reason we're going to talk about this today is as time goes on, the narrative that we're fed largely tends to be a false narrative. We're seeing that right now. We have very interesting trials going on concerning Mr. Fauci. Mr. Fauci's been found guilty of lying, and which we all accused him of. People like me who accused Mr. Fauci of lying and spreading misinformation and all of these other things, we were branded as heretics, banned, marginalized. At the time, I was really only on Facebook, and my account was shut down many times. So Killdozer is an excellent example of how the narrative can be controlled to the point that you don't know what to believe. And as a normal citizen going throughout your day and paying attention to the news and doing all of the things that we're supposed to do in the world today, we don't know. We don't know what's going on. We're fed news. We're fed a specific outlook, and we are manipulated through narrative. And then, of course, as time passes and people dig into things, and just like's happening now with the various things, we end up seeing the opposite point of view might be true, and more than likely is. And the people who are called heretics and people who are called nut jobs, malcontents, often are correct. And this is an interesting subject, especially in the last couple of months with all of the different trials that are going on across the country, all of the different narratives that are coming unraveled. Talk about various islands where things happen that people say didn't happen. And then, of course, other things happen that people said didn't happen or didn't happen that way. But now we're finding out that that's exactly what happened. So, Mr. Niemeyer, I salute you. We wouldn't know as much about Mr. Niemeyer's state of mind and his rationale had he not left video evidence of it. And only a few people have taken the time to consolidate and compile that video into what Mr. Niemeyer actually said and actually represented. We're normal people. I'm a normal person. I don't have any special ability. I don't have any special knowledge. And I'm sure that most people in this chat, outside of a couple of people who I think work for the government, they don't have any special knowledge either. And even if they do, they have only the knowledge that they're given. And this is a real problem with our society. This is a problem that was recognized as far back as the Revolutionary War. You only know what you're told. Even if you see something, and this is very apparent, how many videos have we seen lately of someone apparently breaking the law, kicking someone's ass, perpetrating violence upon someone else, etc. And we're told through the narrative that what we see is not actually what we see. Or we're shown a very specific set of angles and shots which tailor our belief to believe one thing when seen in its entirety, it's completely different. And this is a really important issue. And again, as Killdozer Week draws to a close, we have to face the facts that most of what we're told has an agenda attached to it. Maybe you agree with that agenda. I don't know. Maybe you don't. I'm not here to debate that. I'm not here to debate at all. I'm just making a commentary on something that is it's a hot button issue, I think. And it's not unfair to use the term weaponized. It's not unfair to use the term fictionalized. But overall, no matter what the narrative is, the narrative that we see is generically not going to be, pardon me, I have a station break as I get my beverage. The narrative that we see, the narrative that we're prescribed to, the narrative that we think largely just simply is related to what we have been shown. What's interesting about this is that the propaganda that we're fed is fed specifically to us through specific sources, my belief is that we're fed that propaganda specifically to keep us fighting. If you lean left, you're going to get leftist propaganda that shows everything in this light. If you lean right, you're going to see things in that light. And what happens is regardless of what you actually believe, regardless of what actually happened, you now are fighting with someone else that you don't know. Or maybe you do know them. Maybe they're your best friend, but because they lean left and you lean right, now you have an argument. And this is really interesting. This is very, very interesting to me because I don't care about what my neighbor thinks, really. Why does it hurt me? He can think whatever he wants. He can be over there right now wearing a hot dog mini skirt, running around the house in I don't know, fuzzy bunny slippers. I don't give a fuck. He can believe whatever he wants. It only really matters to me when he starts disagreeing with me. I start disagreeing with him, and now all of a sudden we got disagreement. But what are we really disagreeing about? We don't know, because he might lean left. He doesn't. My neighbor's actually a really nice guy. He's a chiropractor. But if my neighbor did lean left and I leaned right, we're watching completely different news streams. We're going to have different opinions and we're going to argue about them. And now that we don't agree, we're very easy to manipulate. We're very, very easy to manipulate. And I've thought a lot about this because the thing with the killdozer, I've thought about this all week because, every week, get in the killdozer land and all of the memes start popping up and all of the articles start popping up and people, put out fresh information on YouTube or wherever. But nobody ever really talks about what really happened. And what really happened is not, it is important that Mr. Niemeyer felt marginalized and he felt abused by his local community. And I believe that he was taken advantage of. I believe that, the old boy network conspired against him to fuck him over. I believe that 100%, 100% believe it. I don't even know him, never met him, don't care. I believe it. You don't have to believe it. I don't care. It's fine. I don't need to argue with you about that. You believe one thing, I believe another. It's totally cool. What I do know is that the narrative was controlled for so long to make people think that he was a psychotic, raving lunatic out to hurt people. And year after year, we find more and more out. And this is very interesting to me. This is a very, it's a gotcha point, right? I think that this is really something that we have to think about. I think that overall, globally, and I use the term globally as, all of us together, not the whole freaking globe. I don't care what happens in Zimbabwe or anything, but globally, we're fed a narrative, right? And we're fed narratives every day. And I'm using Killdozer as an example, but it can be just as simply as something as dumbasses wearing dresses. And yet here it is right in the Bible. Just don't do that. Don't do it. And yet it's being pushed every day. It's a narrative, right? Right? Cool. Fair? Fair enough? Yeah, it is, right? So why is it that we allow all of these narratives? Why can't we talk to each other openly enough to understand what the reality is? Why do we go knee-jerk reaction? Because we're trained to, because that's what the news tells us. That's the programming that's happening, which I think is why, in my opinion, YouTube has become very important, because it allows people the exchange of ideas. Sometimes there's there's always, an agenda behind it, but it's easier to tell, right? It's not really I'm not pushing any, I'm very clear about the agenda that I push, right? However, you look at what happened with Farha and some of the others who were paid by leftists to say very specific things on various YouTube channels and in various formats, specifically because they had a large social media following, and they wanted to, the left wanted to manipulate that. I think that's pretty cringy myself. I don't know. That just seems really bad. It just seems really bad. I don't have the answers. By the way, I don't have any answers about this. I've thought about it. I think about it at this time every year. Every year, this time of year, I think about this very thing. Right? Yeah. For those of you who are not familiar with the Killdozer, the Killdozer is it's one of my favorite things. Like the Killdozer is just awesome. Look at that thing. Look at it. It's beautiful. Built it himself, spent months doing it. Think about the dedication. Think about how truly dedicated to his cause he was. So he could see where he was going. He had video cameras mounted behind 3 inches of bulletproof glass. It's amazing. It's amazing. Dedication, guys. Dedication. He was not a psychotic dude. I mean, this guy actually, he planned it, he executed it, did a great job. Did a truly great job. And I think he was right to do it. I don't necessarily agree with the amount of property damage he did, but I can't really fault him because he didn't touch anything that didn't, that wasn't owned by somebody that was out to get him. And if somebody's out to get me, I'm out to get them too. Kind of a lot of people checking in here. And it's an interesting thing. I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree with Killdozer's methods, Mr. Niemeyer. But he didn't hurt anybody. I think it's really good. So, yeah, the only mistake he made was not knowing there was a basement. There was a basement. And so when he went into the, I think it was an appliance store owned by somebody that had done him wrong, that was a part of the problem. When he went into that appliance store, when he trashed it, he had one track fall down into the basement, and that was not good. That was not good. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. So just as a show in chat, 1, if you agree with Niemeyer, 2, if you don't. No judgment either way. This is a judgment-free zone for like the next 10 minutes. I'm trying to gauge the idea. I'm trying to gauge, where everything, kind of what people's temperature is on this. So 1, if you agree, 2, if you don't. No judgment. Don't be afraid. Throw it up there. Because Mr. Niemeyer, in my opinion, I think he showed remarkable restraint. I think he showed, and you understand how thoroughly he planned this. He had made a bunch of money. Now, I think also you have to understand that this is what they don't tell you. Mr. Niemeyer was a millionaire. He could have moved out of Granby. He could have moved to like South Texas or Arkansas or wherever the fuck he wanted to move to. And he could have just like stayed somewhere else. He could have moved out. He made a lot of money selling this property. He's liquidated his entire business except for the bulldozer. He had sold his building, was leasing it back. And he could have done that. And you know what he did? He was very smart. He sent all of the money to his, he left all the money to his father. And then his father passed, and all of that money was willed to his brothers. And and so even had they gone after, they couldn't go after his estate for any money or for damages or anything like that. He was actually really very, very smart. You know nothing of the story? Let me hang on, stand by. I got to fix this. There's a hole in Mr. There's a hole in Mr. Mr. Boulet's knowledge. I must fill. So let me I'm going to give you a link here, Mr. So basically, it's a story of a reasonable man who was forced to become unreasonable. I like it. There you go. FFB, I hope the people who had gone out of their way to destroy his business. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there are levels, Arthrodia. I think that Arthrodia, I think that there's levels to this, right? Like I've been wrong before and I have taken subtle retaliations, measured, if you will. If someone tried to destroy my life and was systematically making my life hard for no real reason, I might resort to what Mr. Niemeyer did. So ZD Den, he did not intend. My personal opinion is that at some point Marvin Niemeyer realized. So Marvin Niemeyer had a longtime girlfriend. They broke up. She started smoking again. He objected to her smoking. They broke up. After they broke up, at some point, I think he realized that he didn't have anyone in the world, that he had never married. He had no family. He had no one to provide for, that no one that counted on him to provide for them. And so he had, I think he came to the revelation that he could avenge the wrongs done to him with no real repercussions to anyone but himself. And he was willing to do that. And he did take his own life in the end. So, yeah. So again, I feel obligated to point out that he was a wealthy man. He was not destitute. It wasn't that he couldn't afford to relocate. The problem is that he liked where he lived, and he liked the people there, and his objections were legitimate objections, and he was being railroaded. And he felt very, very wronged. And now we're not talking about this happened over a month. We're talking about this is years. This is years of this going on, where he he would take one step forward, two steps back. It wasn't an overnight thing. So, and I think that it's really, I like that. Yeah, that's, I don't own a bulldozer yet. It's funny though. But I think that it's an interesting, I just think it's an interesting thing. And the narrative completely was that he was an insane person. That he was, I think that, basically they tried to portray him initially as destitute. And he basically, but he was not destitute. And at the time this all happened, he had given all of his money to his father, but he was not by any means destitute. He was just getting continuously screwed over. And it was a pattern over years. It wasn't like it happened over a week. This is years of the government screwing him over. So, yeah. But the narrative, the thing that's really interesting to focus on is how the narrative has changed and how the truth always comes out, right? The truth always makes it in the end. So the and the more we learn, the more everyone's like, you know what? Niemeyer was not bad. So right. This is an interesting point. So here's the thing. He was a very reasonable man. By all accounts, everyone that knew him, he was a very reasonable man. They said even when he first moved to Granby, he was a snowmobiler. He liked to snowmobile. Even people he didn't like, he would go to their business and patronize their business. You don't do that if you're not trying to be reasonable. He was a very reasonable person until it was time to be unreasonable. And then he was unreasonable in the most cautious way possible. Right. I think it is. I do think it is. I don't. I have a problem relegating some of this story to, or not relegating, reconciling this story in my brain. This is actually an interesting point to talk about. What do you guys think? So Niemeyer thought that in his video statements, he says that in his mind, God was leading him to down this path. But then when he got stuck, he committed, he unalived himself rather than be taken alive and punished. How do we reconcile that? I don't know what his specific religion was, so I can't speak to that. And he, so I don't know. How would we rationalize? I can't get there from here personally. Arthrodaya, he decided to make that sacrifice. His brothers inherited all of his wealth, which is what he intended. So I think that he got the exact result that he wanted. He felt like his life was ruined as it was, so he took revenge. No, I can't fault him. I think our founders were unreasonable. They did not accept the world as it was at that time, and they bent the world to their worldview. And that is the definition of an unreasonable man. Okay, that's true. Okay. I don't know what that's about. How about the walls of Jericho? Arthrodaya. I think you're wrong. I think God all throughout history has directed people to punish bad people. So I like what old Joe says here. We all have to decide what legacy we leave. Would we be talking about truth like this if he hadn't acted like he did? No, we wouldn't. They would have buried it, covered it. So, yeah, Clover Tat gets it. So the thing is that in Niemeyer's recorded statements, he talks about how he felt like several times that he could have been stopped, but he wasn't, and he felt like that was God running interference for him. I don't know that I could go along with that, but hey, I'm not him. That's that seems like a little bit of a stretch to me, but he basically, I have to address where to go. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? What about when you can't turn the other cheek anymore? So this is the thing that I always get into, is that the what about turning the other cheek argument. If all a man's going to do is smack me once or twice, then sure, turn the other cheek. If a man's out to destroy my life, I can't turn that cheek. At that point, I believe that God has, throughout the entire biblical reference, God has condoned he's condoned wars. He has led his armies to victory. And so I don't buy this. And I dislike this as an argument when people throw it out there, because yeah, if we're just having words, turn the other cheek. If you set out to destroy my life, I can't turn the other cheek anymore. Now I have to act. And God specifically says, do not murder. He never says do not kill. He says do not murder. So it's not murder if there's a, depending on what's going on. Yeah, so I'm not trying to rational. I'm just going by what the guy says in his videos, right? Like he talks about how everything's sold at auction except the bulldozer, like all of his tools and everything, or all the equipment. Niemeyer talks about that, and he took that as a sign. The bulldozer fit perfectly, and I mean perfectly, like 2 inches to spare on each side through the doors of his building. He took that as some kind of sign. I think that's a stretch. I don't know. I'm just telling you what he thought. I'm not saying I think this. I'm telling you what he thought. He also talks about how when he rented the building out, when he sold the building and leased it back, the new owner, who was it was a trash company, they had to get insurance. And so the insurance adjuster and the new owner walked right by the dozer as it's being armored up. And Niemeyer basically had it just covered with a tarp, not like hidden or anything, and just made up just told him a little bit of a story about what he was doing. He's just modifying my dozer. No big deal. And they just walked on. The guy who owned the local gun shop talks about how he knew that Niemeyer was building an armored dozer and just didn't know what for. Never occurred to them that he would do anything evil. Which I don't know that we can call this evil, but anyway, it didn't occur to them that anything was wrong with him doing that. It's very interesting. So, yeah, it's an interesting discussion, though. So, what happens when the law fails, Arthur Daya? Because the law failed this man. This man appealed to every source of law to help him, and they all failed him. Do you understand the story? I'm going to disagree with you here because, and it's okay to disagree on this. I firmly believe that at some point violence has to be used. It must be used. There is no other result. And the reason that we're in the situation that we're in today is because not enough people use violence, and there's no fear of violence from others. I really do believe that. And that's, right. And I feel like that the whataboutism is meaningless here. He did it in a very specific way, and I think he was right doing it. And I think we were lied to the entire time. The narrative was spun up to appeal to people's nature, such as saying, well, why didn't he just turn the other cheek? Why didn't he just go through legal channels? Well, he did. He hired a lawyer that came in and did the actually held them accountable, and they still screwed him over. So Clover Tack says basically the same thing I did. He did get railroaded every single time. He did not plan to hurt anybody. So there's a good argument for this. I don't think that, but the problem is that even if we want to say that, he never exhibited those signs. He was still fighting for his rights right up until he couldn't get, until it just wasn't going to, until it was apparent it wasn't going to work. And they were fining him every single day. They were doing things that was really, really bad. But yeah, all he planned on destroying, and he did. So but we should have people running around making sure that unfair, unjust laws get removed. This is the problem with society. We do not stand up for ourselves anymore. This is a serious issue in society today. Our government no longer fears the populace. The only time a government is worth a damn, the only time the laws work is when the people en masse have control of that government. We do not. We absolutely do not. You hear it all the time. You hear people say, what are you going to do with your little dinky AR-15 if something happens? The government is the government's too big. The government is all this. So that's it. So Wahoo makes a good point here. Look at all the destruction that people who just, and that was totally okay. Everybody was fine with that. No problem. Nobody got arrested. Nobody got, nobody got, I got tear gassed a couple of times. That was about it. Yeah. I don't know about the courthouse, but I'm pretty sure that we've read many stories of where men have done similar things. Although I think the more common story is that the wife feels screwed somehow, and she then sells the guy's Corvette for $1, or poops on the guy's bed or whatever. So, Siege D, we do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. It's a very important thing to remember. Unless you live in Canada. Maybe Canada's different. Who would he have appealed to? Just curious. Who do you think that would have done that? I really like Angel Berber's comments. He is, and I'm assuming it's a guy, maybe a girl, I don't know. I really like this person's comments. They have great insight. This is really good. The government is given the illusion of power. People forget that every revolution is overwhelmingly led by the lower classes and not the elite. To some degree, yeah, that's true. In other countries, that's certainly been true. In America, that's not actually been true so far, but whatever. So this is a problem that people don't seem to understand. There is no appealing a county codes court ruling. Who are you going to appeal it to? There's nothing. You can't appeal that. It just doesn't exist. So it doesn't matter. It's not this wasn't a criminal case. This isn't something where he could take it to the Supreme Court. Although I guess he could have filed like some weird discrimination suit that probably would have taken decades to resolve. We're talking about real estate court. There's no appealing this. Once it's done, it's done. You walk away. So, but that's the thing. And then, okay, so now you're saying he's screwed, doesn't give him a right to destroy property. So what does he do, Arthur Daya? What does he do? If somebody came today, let's just say that, let me tell you exactly what, I mean, since I'm sure you haven't actually read the story. If someone came to you and said, the house that you sit on, you can't use your septic system anymore, whichever you have, city, county, whatever, that you now have to spend $80,000 to install one. And every day that you don't install it, even though you have a working one, even though every day you don't install it, they're going to fine you. You go to court and you say, hey, I don't like this. This is wrong. They say, I don't care. It is what it is. There's nowhere to appeal it. Their word is final. And at some point they're going to take your property. What would you do? Would you move out? Would you just give up? Move along? Nothing to see here? Most of us can only take the loss so far. There's a financial burden. I mean, he did that. Technically, he had the money. If there was a path to do that, I think he would have done it. There just was not a path to do that. He was literally a millionaire. I mean, he was not dead. I know that in the early versions of the story, they painted him as destitute and all of that, but he was not destitute at all. America is and has had unique exceptions that define most civilizations in human history. We are the exception, and I think that that's one of the reasons why we tend to have a very different viewpoint. We're not exempt from the rules of human history. I think to some degree we kind of are. We'll see. We're going to see really soon, I think. I do like it. That's true. I did see those videos. Did I make a bad comment somewhere? Are you directing that at me? I'm not really sure. Yeah. And this is the difference between men and women. There's no way. Well, so if somebody did that to me, I can tell you that I would fight them tooth and nail. And at some point, it might actually come down to physical violence, because there's no way. I'm going through a thing right now where I can't get the county to come out and retest perk sites that have expired on some acreage I own. And I actually tried to hire a private company to do it. They weren't taking new customers at that time. I'm actually going to go back and see if I can get them to do it now. I can't build on that property without those perk tests. And until they get around to doing it, they're just not going to do it. My next step is to actually go to the county building commissioner and say, hey, I've asked 8 times to have somebody come out and do this, and I keep getting brushed off. And I understand a lot of the construction is happening on the other side of town. It's hard for the guys to get over there. They only have, I think, 4 people. I don't know if they're all men. There's only 4 people that do the testing. It's out of their way. They're government employees. I get it. But it's been a year and a half. I need to get it over there. So see, old Joe, that's true. The city will seize it and then you're out. Right. Yeah. You don't own a dozer. I mean, that dozer's like, I don't know. It's a couple $100,000 at least. It might be more. They did hurt many people physically. I wasn't downplaying. I was saying that they never were really punished for any of that. They did get their asses kicked a few times, but they weren't put in jail and all that. Yeah. I'm not sure there's any way there's not a way to appeal in Tennessee. I must say state has power to remove a city or a county or city. So that's true. But I don't it was an old boy network in full effect, so I don't know. That's a great point. In this case, I believe that Niemeyer decided that he was being unjustly treated, and I believe that he was. So I don't know. If I had all that money, yeah. See, if I had all that money, I probably would have moved to fucking Florida, but I didn't. So it wasn't me. Whatever. Actually, I wouldn't have. I don't know what I would have done. I think that, but now we do have to say that Niemeyer made a couple of pretty serious errors. One of the things is that he trusted the county official to file, who came by and said that he would fill out all of the paperwork for Niemeyer's sewer permit, and he didn't. He basically screwed Niemeyer. Basically, and I think that ultimately Niemeyer. Here's the conspiracy theory that I have. I think that Niemeyer felt like that the old boy network was in full effect, and that when he took over the property, the county inspector, who was a friend of the people who had tried to buy the property that he had ended up buying, and was a friend of the newspaper guy who wrote all the stories, who was a friend of the county commissioner, all of that. The inspector came out and said, "Hey, you really need to connect to the sewer, blah, 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 do all this stuff." And this is what actually started the whole deal, in my opinion. And the guy said that he would take care of all the paperwork, and all Niemeyer needed to do was show up. Niemeyer shows up to sign the paperwork. Nothing's done. Nothing's done properly. Nothing's done at all. And this is what starts to snowball. Now, because, though, the county official had started the paperwork to get a septic system in play, or to get him tied into the city sewer system, this was a sticking point, because because once that paperwork had been filed, it was then under the county's purview. I think later Niemeyer felt like that was done on purpose, and because Niemeyer did not immediately file for a retraction because he was exploring options, it basically meant that at any time the county could exercise control over his property, and require him to meet the code that he had previously not had to meet, or it wasn't even a code, it was a whatever, ordinance, county ordinance. And so, and that meant that they could fine him. Now, he wasn't required to do this previously, and he didn't, and he didn't feel like he needed to. That wasn't the final straw, but that is what started the ball rolling. So yeah, I'm not keeping up with the chat right now. I'm talking, and you guys are kind of moving. And it's an interesting thing. I feel like, and really, I think it's more about the narrative that was told afterwards, because people don't know about this. People don't hear about, that Niemeyer was. I feel like, with all of the evidence that's been pulled together, I feel like that Niemeyer felt very conspired against from the beginning. And if of course, I haven't watched his tape. I wish I could watch his tapes. I've only been able to read the stuff. But there's no realm of reality where the government gets to walk over me. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So a year or so ago, I had my boat parked out in front of my property, and I don't have an HOA here, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. I had my boat parked out there, and I was at my warehouse, and I was doing some work in there. I don't remember what I was doing. Probably fucking with a car, an airplane, or something. So I get a call from my wife saying, "Hey, there's a codes guy here. He wants you to call him back. He's talking about towing your boat." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" So I call the guy up, and he's like, "Yeah, I was in the neighborhood on another call, and we've had some complaints about your boat being parked on the street, and there's it's a county ordinance or a city ordinance that you can't park trailers on the street." And I'm like, "That's not accurate at all. I happen to know that as long as it's licensed, or it doesn't need to be licensed, I can park my trailer on the street all I want. Campers are different, but trailers are, not subject to that. But they do have to be moved like every 3 days. Like you can't park it there for a week and just leave it. It can't be there for a month or whatever. You got to move it I think it's like every every 48 or 72 hours, something like that. It's got to move. That's accurate. That part of it would have been true, but he didn't. He said, nope, there's a 2-hour loading and unloading ordinance. And I said, that's not true. I told him, I said, well, here's the thing. Send me over the code, the city code that says that you, first of all, that my trailer is illegally parked. And second, that you have any right to tow it, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, this conversation's over. I'm not talking to you again. And if you come and try and tow my trailer or tow my boat, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you, and I'll sue the city. So he's like, well, I'm just going to turn it over to the police. I'll just have the police come by. I'm like, okay, fine, cool. So I happened to be there when the police get there. They drove by, then they drove back by, and they came by, and they finally stopped. I said, hey, what's up? I said, well, here's the thing. Your codes guy's wrong. I can park my boat here 24/7 as long as I move it every few hours, every 48 hours or whatever, which I do. I go fishing every day. I was on the lake twice a day at that point. There was no point in me backing into my fucking driveway. So they told me that, well, we may have to tow it if he calls back. And I'm like, well, you're going to have, before you tow it, you're going to have to show me the exact code and law that you're towing my vehicle on and taking my property. Otherwise, I will call the dispatcher and I will have other police or the county sheriffs out here to stop you from stealing my property. And if you do take my property, then I'll sue you. And it's just the way it's going to go. You will have to provide me with the exact code that you're enforcing, exactly the law that you're enforcing. And I never heard another word about it after that. Most people just roll over. They just don't care. And I didn't actually intend to go down this road, but since Arthur Dyer and some others want to, talk about how the law, how we should just roll over and obey the law. Fuck the law. The law is a construct that I don't necessarily have to agree with or abide by. I do it out of the kindness of my heart and the threat of force. That's it. Fuck those guys. I don't care. If they're wrong, I will make every effort to prove them wrong. And everyone else should. Every person listening to this, every person in the world, at least in the United States, should never just accept the law at face value. Ever. Ever. It's just the way it is. I don't care. I don't care if it's the law that I have to have, whatever. If you're going to have to prove it to me. First of all, you got to prove it to me. And then we're going to have another problem if I'm not violating that law. Because I don't believe county people. I don't believe city people. I don't believe cops. I've been pulled over before, and I've had cops literally have the wrong, not understand their own laws. Now, I've also been pulled over before, and I've had cops that absolutely understood the law. I was pulled over in Utah one time because I had out-of-state tags. It was just going to happen. And I had a firearm in the vehicle. I always have a firearm. It's just the way it is. And I was unaware that the law in Utah is that you have to be at the time, you had to be 2 steps. You could have a gun in the vehicle. That's totally fine. But it had to be 2 steps from you being able to use it. Drawing, racking the slide, whatever. So I carry chambered, right? Like we just don't. You just don't not carry with an empty chamber. You just don't carry with an empty chamber. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. So I got pulled over. Cop asked me for my insurance. I said, it's in the glove compartment with my gun. You should probably get it yourself. I had 2 other guys. I had a couple of guys in a vehicle with me. And I said, and he said, well, okay, no problem. And he got the gun. He cleared it. He came back. He said, hey, listen, man, I know you're from Colorado. I know you're probably not really familiar with our laws here, but you can't carry with the with the gun chambered. I said, okay, that's good information. But literally, as soon as I drove away, I rechambered the gun. Because why? Why would I care? I don't care. I'm not gonna abide by that. That I don't agree with it, and if I got caught, I would suffer the consequence. So, so it's interesting. I find the discussion of law and following the law always very interesting. I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe if the Constitution doesn't say it, then you can't do it. Or you shouldn't do it. Or at least the federal government shouldn't do it. State governments can do whatever the fuck their Constitution says, but federally, the Constitution is very clear about what they can and cannot do. Difficult child because I thought about rules and things adults told me in question. Yeah, right. Kevin and I are a lot alike. I swear we're like brothers, man. Because I question everything. You're gonna have to prove it to me, especially when people start making bullshit claims like I can tow your stuff just because it's parked on the street. Fuck that. So I love that song. That's a great dude. Thank you. I'm gonna have to look that up now. Damn straight. Sure. And you are not, you should never feel obligated to follow flawed law. You need to fight the flawed laws. You are compelled because the laws of men do not trump the laws of God. They don't trump natural. They just don't. They don't. Especially when they're not necessarily constitutional. I keep coming back to that constitutional thing. Yeah. I like Chief Wahoo too. He's on it, man. He makes some great comments. Yeah. So it's an interesting fact, by the way, just since you guys are going to talk about it, and I'm probably going to get like super mega canceled for saying this, but the owning of other humans was just as more predominant in northern states, and northern states actually held on to them longer than many southern states. It's just a matter of history. You can look it up. It's very interesting. The history is very, very interesting. What's up, Easy's Jade? Do I know you? I don't. I think I've seen you. I don't know who you are. I apparently you're with Easy. I don't know where Easy is. He should be up by now. He usually pops in. So, yeah, historical context. I'm just saying, it's history. History is very interesting because a lot of things and again, this is the narrative, right? There's a narrative around every single piece of thing that you know. Everything that you think you know is presented to you in a very specific context. And if you don't question it, then you're wrong. You are wrong. There's no right in just accepting things blindly as you think they may or may not be. There's no right in that. Anson Knowles for $10. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. The Constitution is like a magical incantation written long ago that has mystical powers, allowing you to believe you are free. The Constitution is of no consequence. Rights don't exist. This is accurate. However, it is law. And law and rights are not the same thing, although the Constitution, through the theory of law, grants us certain rights. It's a slippery slope, I'll give you, but it's the one I'll die. I'll die on this one. I'll go down with that ship. That's okay. I'll lose the argument. I know I will, but I will go down on that ship. Thank you though. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. By the way, guys, just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit here. I'm not really sure where Kat is, but for those of you who didn't see the picture from earlier where, she was, she's planning her revenge against myself and some other, men who are testing her patience. It's a real-time photo of Cat getting ready to whoop our asses. Just put that out there. So, yeah. And this is something we should always remember about cats, especially Cat. It's a perfect little killing machine. They don't weigh enough. We keep picking them up. All right. Well, now that the humor hour is over, Kat is. I think she's doing family stuff right now. It's the last day of school or something, or she's got a function. I don't know. So, so it's an interesting thing about the narratives that we're told versus the actual history. I think it's our responsibility as good humans to understand the history. And you're just not a good human being if you don't at least attempt to understand the history from multiple aspects. Are you saying that Cat is having a cat nap? A cat nap? Yeah, Mr. Bigglesworth, Dr. Evil. Who said they like my hat better? So this my buddy had this business Roar Racing, and he actually fucker. I think he's gone out of business. He gave me a bunch of these hats because I wear hats all the time. Yeah. This is good. History is not always as we've been told. Rachel wrote a book about that regarding feminism. That is accurate. That is very true. Law and enforcement are only as strong as the culture dictates at the time. Obscenity laws, pies on windowsills, etc., all still on the books but not enforced due to the culture. It's very accurate, very good, very. I tell you, Angel Barber, if you ever want to be on the show, I think you'd make great observations. Yes. Good afternoon, Viking Paradigm. Glad to see that you're finally awake as well. I don't know how many of us. I don't know how many of us were up really late last night. I ended up staying up till about 2:00 in the morning watching Andrew's TikTok invasion. I lasted to like 2, and then I had to bail. But it was psycho last night. It was really crazy. Angel Berber, get with the mods. They'll get you into our Discord. They've got all the links and stuff. So just converse with those guys in the chat. It'll be fine. We'll get you on here, man. I like what you have to say. You seem to make intelligent comments. Actually, we have a lot of really intelligent people in this that follow this program, and I really like it. Let's see. I do believe Kat is hosting an after school party or something like that. So that's pretty good. You lasted till 2 as well. 2:00, man. I was like, I'm done. I'm going to bed. It's fun, but it's not, too fun. This is an excellent statement. Clover Tack and I, peas in a pod. Way too many laws, regulations, and statutes. When the average person commits a felony or 2 a day without knowing it, we have too many laws. And what's more, we have too many really stupid laws. And stupid laws that only affect people because other people want to punish people for things that may or may not be something that should be punished for. And it's an interesting dynamic. And I continue to go back to the narrative aspect of it, because we believe what we're told and how it's presented. So yeah. Kevin's on fire today. They want it that way. It allows them to always have a method to control citizens. Absolutely. That's accurate. Not every time, but maybe every once in a while they need to rebuild. Commits 2 to 3 felonies per day by the books. I think you're right. I think I read that same thing. Yeah, almost anything. Yeah. Obstructing an officer is a really interesting one. not libertarian. I'm a constitutional conservative. And basically, I really believe that if it's not in the Constitution, it shouldn't exist. I do believe that the government has some interest in modernity in some areas, but like I don't believe the FAA, for example, should have anything to do with private aviation. The FAA, because it's made it so expensive needlessly, it's terrible. But the FAA should be very concerned with commercial aviation and what's happened over the years. I'm going to pick on the FAA for a minute. The FAA has, on one hand, they are horrible to deal with on the private side. So someone like me, a private citizen, the amount of garbage that we have to deal with is massive. On the commercial side, the wink and nod thing works way too often, and so it's actually reverse. And we're seeing that with Boeing, right? We're seeing that with all of these preventable accidents, all of these runway incursions, all of the controller mishaps. And this is all under the purview of the FAA, and they have been so focused on private aviation and basically harassing private citizens for decades, probably 100 years, that commercial aviation is gotten away with so much they shouldn't. And they're the ones that the FAA really should be concerned with, just like the FCC. The FCC should not care about a guy with a pair of walkie-talkies talking to his friends. They should be very concerned with radio stations and TV stations and things like that. And I'm not even sure, honestly, I don't even know that the FCC should exist either. I'm just not, I just don't believe in a lot of this stuff. No, actually, that's not true. The controllers do that. The FAA does not do that. The FAA does not employ air traffic controllers. Airports do, and the FAA does not run airports. It's an interesting dynamic that the way government works is it makes people believe that they do things that they don't actually do. It's very interesting. I always find that very interesting. Yeah. So here's the thing. I can fly anywhere I want. I don't even have to have a radio in my plane by law. It is law now that if I have an electrical system in my airplane, I have to have ADS-B in and out so that the tower can track me. However, I don't ever have to talk to them, ever. I do not have to have a radio in my airplane. It is smart that I do so, but I don't have to. So again, the FAA has no place in private aviation, in my opinion. They all they do is they make it worse. They make it just like every other government agency. The government should not be involved in things like that. Yeah, and basically, I mean, this is pretty fucking accurate. They take taxes and they enforce laws and they do a poor job of both. So yeah. Yep. Let's see. Executive branch government agencies should not exist, at least in their currently bloated, power-hungry form. Man, it just warms my heart, brother. It warms my heart. Those things should be left to the states. That's right. With maybe minor Fed. I wouldn't say oversight. I would say coordination between states. I think the only thing that the federal government should do is the federal government should be the oil to prevent friction between, say, Tennessee and Alabama. That's it. No other authority. I can let some guys hop on. We got about an hour to go. So yeah, if you guys, if somebody wants to come on. Did some consulting work for a scrap metal company one time. One government agency was subsidizing the business developing projects. Another agency was actively trying to shut the business down. That's government for you, baby. That's how it works. That's how it works, man. That's just normal. That's just Friday. Yeah, one of the weirdest dynamics he'd ever seen. Absolutely, man. That's just Friday. Just Friday. Who wants to come up? Anybody want to come up? You want to come talk? Let's talk narratives. Yeah, coordination, much better. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's really what the federal government should be doing. It should be coordinating between states. Kind of a, hey, you know, Alabama says this, Tennessee says that. Let's work this out together. Make it work. They're federal only. There are no state well, there are some state aviation laws as far as, you know, but none that matter to me. Only that they only matter to like if you want to own an airport, there's some laws there, but even those get trumped by the FAA. So reducing, you know what? I think a lot of people have said that, and I think it's I don't know that 75%. I think 100% in some cases, but yeah, sure, like that. I mean, probably not wrong. Probably not wrong. America parents and states as children. Children have grown up, and it's time to. That's great. That is. I'm going to leave that up for a minute. That's really great. Please put on pants, please, sir. I beg of you. Yeah, boot up the spaceship. Get the spaceship ready to go. What other narratives? What other narratives do you guys? What other narratives do you guys like to, or are you guys sick of? Right? What's the thing? The thing of the thing. I need some narratives here, guys. What are your favorite narratives? I already did. Body positivity narrative. All right, I like that. Yeah, that's a solid, man. I like that. How about the emissions controls? You guys are so you guys probably aren't aware because you're not in the space, but so I have a friend of mine who owns a very small shop in Colorado, but for a while they did mail order sales and actually made some products, or I should say they had some products made that they sold under their brand that allowed people to tune their cars, especially if they put and specifically really if they put a turbocharger on it. And so it was one of those things where you can't it was such a small thing, and it was I'm jumping around here, guys. Sorry guys, I'm jumping around. It was such a small thing that nobody thought anything about it. It was only a couple $100 each, right? It's only a couple $100. Well, maybe they're $400, whatever. In 2018 or 19, they got sued, or they got fined by the EPA for products they sold in like 2010 that didn't meet the EPA guidelines. And it's like 18 grand, which was dumb. It was stupid. This was like, it was clearly they were out to make examples of very specific people who they really felt like couldn't pay the fines and didn't have enough money to fight them in court. I believe that the owner is a friend of mine. I believe he did fight them in court. I don't think he won. I do think that they got the fine reduced and some other things worked out, but they literally were threatening to come lock his business up, literally shutting the doors and not allowing him to do business because of something he did 8 years, 9 years, 10 years previously that was 100% legal at that time. And this is the thing that makes people sick and distrustful of all government regulation. And it's really terrible. Buck White, you do not need a turbo for your 03 Taurus. I'm sorry. Your car sucks. Just ride it till it dies and buy a new one. We are already pretty low right now. I don't think we're going to go below 5. I think currently we're at 5.5%. So I think I would be surprised if we get below 5. Carbon dioxide is required by plants to grow the line. Right. So this isn't it. That's bad science. It's really stupid. I agree with you on that. Narrative, people thinking they would behave differently if they lived in the past. This perplexes me. When I would behave differently, I'd be a pirate. Just saying. Arr. I even have the flag. On the one hand, I've always been a car enthusiast and advocated freedom to modify your car. On the other hand, as a cyclist, Chads and diesel brodozers rolling coal for fun deserve any comeuppance they get. So I have an interesting take on that as well. Hi, Kat. Kat, I have a special. I have a picture of you that we took earlier. I just want to show you this. And this is when you were threatening me and the other gentleman on stage. I don't know if you can read that. But,
hold on, I cannot see it at the moment. Something has popped up on
I'm
my
gonna leave that up for a moment. I really like the way you stick your tongue out when you talk. That's cute. Or when you're thinking hard. Do you see it yet?
Oh my God.
You want video proof, right? So, and here we found a picture of your of why your cat, where we found the explanation of why your cat is so angry. Just wanted to remind everybody. So, yeah, cats are always mad. I don't know why. Well, now I do. I always wondered. So, Kat, I just wanted to, I've been waiting patiently for you to get here for that. We've been talking about Killdozer. Have you been listening to the show? Your mic.
Oh no, I have been running around today.
Yeah, were you doing a party for children or something?
No, it was the last day of school, so they were doing stuff, and I was like, with them.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Killdozer?
No.
That's Killdozer.
Okay.
Granby, Colorado. He drove through the town, wrecked it. He wrecked it. It's very fun. We've been talking about that. So cool stuff. I'll throw up a different background here, just because I'm cool. Oh wait, that's the wrong button. Where's the right button? There we go. That's good. I like that. Why is that foreground? That should be the background. All right, never mind. I'll hide that. Clover Tack, welcome to the show, Mr. Clover.
What up?
Mike, there we go.
No, I was switching windows. I was trying to mute the YouTube side.
Yeah.
So that's all.
All right.
Cat showed up. It's about time.
I know. Well, stray cats wander in when they want to.
God. Horrible.
At least she's not a barn cat.
Yeah, but barn cats and all are the best.
Barn cats are awesome, especially female barn cats. Female barn cats have a completely different attitude. They're awesome.
I don't know that house cats serve any purpose at all.
They're fluffy.
I guess if you like that sort of thing. They make fluffy pillows though.
Cat, you don't have any makeup on?
No, it's been a rough day.
Really? You look fine.
What is this?
Apparently she did shave though. I don't.
She did shave.
Yeah, I did shave. Thank you guys for reminding me.
Oh, we got it, man. We're gonna have it's all time of the night tonight. That's fun. This is fun. This is good. This is good. I'm liking this. All right, so Viking, what is your controversial narrative thing that you dislike?
that the idea that the world is worse than it's ever been and that it's about to end.
Amen.
There's many ways that people say this, climate change and shit like that. Like the country's fucked. We're all doomed.
Gun violence, danger around every corner.
Yeah, oh shit, like everything's going to hell. Just like, yeah, there's some areas where shit's going to hell, but it's usually because they have too many and shitty rules.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Or said basic rules aren't even enforced.
Yeah, that too.
Once
again, like the basic matters thing.
You can go loot a store. That's fine.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. It would be bad if we prosecuted you for doing some fuck shit.
I actually really want it. That's really great. So what's the panel? Now we have a panel, and welcome Angel B. Welcome. Glad you joined us.
Thank you, Grid. Appreciate it.
What do we think about this ridiculousness in California that if it's under, what is it, like $1,000 or $1,200, that they just don't even try and stop you?
Yeah, it's like 1,300 now. Last time I heard from people there.
Yeah. I live in California. Yes, that's what it is.
So, quick story. So we're in Vegas where it's shot. Was it this year?
Okay.
Last year. This year, right? Okay. So decided, okay, we got in early, got into Vegas early, and it's like, all right, we'll go just see the sights, do some shopping, do some other things. We go into some big shoe store. It's a chain out west. I don't know. I don't remember what it is. But we go in there. While we're in there, we literally, with our own eyes, witness 6 different people pick up shoes in that store and just walk right out the door. And we're like, what in the, you get shot in Texas for that kind of thing. Like, what is going on? We get up to the counter and the little kid, younger guy, well, I'll say kid, just younger than me, but behind the counter, we're like, so what's up with the people just walking out with shoes? And they're like, oh yeah, we're not allowed to like stop them or grab them or even yell at them or say anything. There's like nothing we can do. All they do is management later. We write down the time. Management later looks at the security camera footage and sends that out to all the other stores. And basically that's all we can do.
So they have their friends come in and steal shit and then just.
Yeah. And I'm like, so what you're telling me is that we could have come in here and the stuff that I brought up to the counter, the whatever it was, $300 worth of shoes, we could have just walked out the door with these. And he's like, technically you still can. And I'm like, I think I'll pay for them. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
So I agree with Viking. I actually hate the doomer mentality too. I think, and I very constantly remind people that we currently live in the best world that's ever existed.
Yeah.
That most people today could not survive even 20 years ago, let alone 80 years ago. And it's crazy to think that they can. I really like all of the homesteader shows that are on TV that make it look so hard but accomplishable, and you can do it. Just try really hard and get your organic solar garden pumping, and you'll be great. Great.
Yep.
I love those because
ain't nothing wrong with an organic solar garden. So
there isn't, but it's hard work. I bet you have one, and I bet you work on it all the damn time.
Have you seen anything about like the New Mexico Earth ships and stuff like that sort of tech?
I'm sorry, what?
Like hippie homes, like Earth ships built out of recycled tires and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually the business I'm building right now. This is the tech side of things, but I'm planning into going into like home building and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of Atlas Bunker, and I want to incorporate some of his tech into my designs as well. So yeah, I've got some big ideas in the works, and I know quite a few of the people I need to make it happen.
Angel, you seem like you had something to say on that. What's up?
Yeah, I could say that me and my son talk about this a lot, and it's because I learned how to do a lot of the homesteading from my grandfather, because me and my cousins, we weren't allowed to stay home during the summer when school was out. We were all sent to our grandparents for the entire summer, and since our grandparents lived on a ranch, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And from that, I taught my son how to grow food because we were taught how to till. You know, you had to till and rotate soil when you were preparing for crops. So I did that with my son, even living in the city. I took a plot of land and showed him how to do it, you know, and it is a lot of work. Absolutely is. And what I talk to my son about all the time is that the benefit of being intergenerational, meaning the elders that come before you, great grandparents and grandparents, take a part in the parenting of the future generations as long as they're alive or are able to continue to do so.
It's a great point.
I spent 8 years of my life as a child with my great grandmother and my grandmother while my father was at work. So I was exposed to all of the trials of an individual who lived during the Depression and post-Depression and so on. So I was taught, my older cousins, we were taught that the basic golden rule was that the world, the luxury you know it as now, it's not guaranteed. So you need to understand what it used to be before this came to exist. And so we were taught the skills to live if these things fail, to continue to go on and be okay.
Yeah. I like that. I kind of had that same kind of dynamic. I would spend the summers with my grandparents, one set or the other. And, you know, I had one set of grandparents that had like geese and, what are those stupid birds that I really
Geese
hate?
are mean.
Geese are mean. But the ones that were even meaner, the peacocks, peafowl, are just mean.
Yep. My grandfather had a collection of peacocks. Yeah.
So mean.
Turkeys are pretty mean too.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. But the peafowl are just angry birds. The cats disagree.
They were.
They're so angry. They're just like, they're angry for no reason. And
we used to get in trouble for fighting with them, and our grandfather really valued his peacocks, and we would fight with them. And then if we ended up taking off one feather off of them, that was our heads, you know.
Have you had peafowl, Cat?
Like peacocks?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. They're loud, but they're fine. I mean, to me, they seem pretty cool.
What do they taste like?
I don't eat them.
Nobody? Okay. No.
I haven't eaten one. I'm assuming it's like an oilier turkey.
Yeah.
Turkeys are the devil, though.
Yeah, I've only had
Geese are
duck
mean
and
too.
pheasant.
Geese are mean too.
I think geese
Yeah,
are meaner
geese
than
geese are
chase
really
you across
fucking
the-
mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll chase you across the yard.
Ducks are amazing.
They'll take on all comers. They're like that old cartoon. They're just
They don't
like
discriminate.
Yeah, you know what Angel's talking about there, though, you know, that's one of the main problems, I think, when we talk about destruction of nuclear family and then by proxy generational family, is you get this attitude. You get people that don't know anything, you know, younger generations that don't know anything. And then when you do have those generational figures around, be it an older coworker or a buddy's grandfather or whatever it might be, it's the attitude of, oh, he's just an old head and he's out of touch, right? Like,
Right.
I can't learn anything from that. So the willingness to accept wisdom, you know, unfortunately, is another casualty of that.
Yeah,
part
I'm
of
the oldest of
society.
5, and I spent lots of time with my grandfather. It wasn't like where I'd go out there during the summer, but it was like I was out there like at least a couple of weekends out of a month and shit like that all the time growing up, helping, you know, mow lawn, rake leaves, pick up pine cones and sticks, you know, doing basic yard work. He had 5 acres of property that he didn't have horses anymore, but it used to be a horse farm when my mom was growing up. And so I was just learning basic property maintenance, right? And just doing stuff with grandpa and listening to his war stories from the Navy and stuff. A lot of people, or a lot of, you know, my cousins, my brothers and sisters, they did, oh, that's just grandpa telling the stories. Well, I figured out my grandpa had a neat little system. He'd tell you 3 boring stories, and if you could sit through 3 boring stories, he'd tell you 1 good one. And if you sat through those, he'd tell you even more and more. So I got to hear about the stuff about how he helped design the onboard systems for the stealth planes and shit like that, whereas a lot of my cousins didn't get to hear any of those stories. So, yeah, good times, man.
Yeah, that's valid. I've gotten that too with let's just say older generations, because whether that's grandfathers or great uncles or whatever, that it seems like there's a big difference in the stories they tell when you're sitting around a coffee table, or you're sitting around like, you know, the campfire with the entire family, and you're out working on a fence row or doing something. You get different stories that nobody else is privy to.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah,
Man. A lot of people just don't have stomach for it. It's fucking crazy to me. I was always taught to listen to my elders. Like they may not know everything, but they know shit you don't know.
And this goes back to the conversation that you were having 2 days ago about men, right? And my contention was, and I wasn't even contention with what we were saying. I was with the fact that we don't hold men to a higher standard, was that men today don't have the old principle that I was definitely raised with from 3 generations of, that when you're here as a man, your works here as a man, even if you work to improve yourself, the work to improve yourself shouldn't be for you yourself. It should be to plant the tree for the future. And your goal should not be to live to see the fruits of that tree. If you're doing that, that's what feeds into hedonism. See, a goal as a man, your duty as a man to the world should be to make the world better around you, not just for yourself.
Yes, sir. That's what my grandfather always taught us about. Like when we go anywhere, when we go to like, you go to a house, a neighbor's house or something like that, a friend's house, go to a park, leave it cleaner than when you arrived. So I'm the oldest of 5. When we go to like a park, there'd be trash and shit like that. Even more so today. Like it wasn't as bad back then, but there's like trash everywhere. We'll literally just go around and clean up the fucking park and just put all the trash in the trash can. Do we have to? No. Why do we do it? Because leave the world better than when you arrived. Basic principle.
Mm-hmm. And at my age now, you know, I'm the old man of my siblings. It's funny because, you know, like Grid, if not, and my family dynamic, Grid would be an older brother because my youngest brother is 11 years younger than me, right? And I'm going to be a grandfather this November, and I'm 41, you know. My nephews who were just born, you know, they're going to have my grandchild is going to be as old as my nephews that were just born. So I'm going to have grandkids here, and I'm going to have my nephews here with me, and I'm going to be navigating how to cross generate there in terms of information and how they're brought up, because I'm going to be juggling my son and his values and traditions, which are my own, because he's carrying on my stuff. Then my brother, who's carrying on some of that stuff, and I'm going to be, you know, pollinating that among them when they're here with me, because they're going to obviously leave them all off with grandpa and uncle, you know. So it's going to be interesting. But I'm living to see. What's that?
You're in the U.S. then, right?
Yeah, I'm in California.
Oh, you're in California?
I'm a native Texan, but I'm here in California. Yes.
Which part?
Wow. Speaking for all Texans, so the moment you moved into California, we disowned you with all due respect and love. Just saying.
Nah, he can come back. He can come back.
I've been back a few times already. So
are you in Northern Texas, California or Southern California? Or
Northern. I'm in the cesspool capital of Sacramento right now.
Oh man, I feel bad for you. It's nice country, but it's terrible.
It's beautiful being able to go to Tahoe and Yosemite in the forest, and I live by the river, so I get to go. That's why when I message you about the trails and stuff, in the middle of the day, I'm out on the trails. I'm working out. I work out in the woods because it's nice. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
You're always welcome back home. Just know that.
Hey, I'm from a sugarcane town in Texas. I'm towards the southern border, Weslaco. It's a sugarcane town.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And congrats on the grandfather thing. It's freaking awesome.
And at my age, it's going to be interesting. You know why? Because in 18 years,
Yeah.
I'll be 59, which means if they start young, I'll be able to see the third generation down already.
No, so there's a few trains of thought, and that's what I was going to speak on that. I'm in the same situation. So I've got grandbabies that are roughly around the same age as some nieces and nephews myself. Not
Yep.
all, but some, because
Mhm.
I'm the oldest too, right?
Mhm.
So some of my younger grandbabies and my or anyway same age as some of my younger nieces and nephews. But yeah, that's one of the cool things about when you get into this argument or this debate about, oh, should you marry young, should you wait, should you do this, should you do that. There's something to be said about locking down and getting serious young.
There is.
With the generational family. This is exactly what Angel is bringing up. Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. Anything can happen with, diseases and everything else nowadays,
Yeah.
and even accidents. You never know when it's your time, right?
Yeah.
But with modern medical technology and everything else, my grandparents lived into the late 80s and 90s, so I got quite a few years left. I could see great grandchildren even, right? So that's an awesome thing. And had I waited, that would not likely have been possible, right? And I'm not saying I even waited by choice. Don't get me wrong, but and then the same goes true that a lot of people I think have issues in their marriage, and kids are a burden. That's the beauty with grandbabies. With grandbabies are not. You can send them home. But
Yep.
the kids are a burden. We love them. We raise them to be self-sufficient. We do all the right parenting things we need to do. But let's be honest, marriages work, and then when you've got kids involved, it's
More work.
exponentially more work. And one of the cool things, and this is kind of where I'm at now, is you're married, you raise your kids, you get your kids out of the house, and then it's you and your wife. And like, if you can tough through, if you can make it through, if you can make that work, it is so freaking awesome when you get to that point, because it's almost like you're young again in a way, right? You don't have those kids, you don't have those things tying you down. And don't get me wrong, they're still your kids. And my oldest one has been borrowing my truck for like the last month now, so things like that definitely happen. But you don't have them living in the house and have to discipline and deal with them and worry about where they're at and all that kind of stuff, if you've raised them right anyway.
I'm just gonna ZT Den. I was actually on the phone. I have a pest problem at one of my properties, and I had to take that call. And then right as I took that call, my wife decided to call in, and I have to take that call as well. So I apologize for my distraction. I try really hard not to be distracted during the show, but it did happen. I apologize. So anyway, this is a really great conversation, and I really like this comment right here. You were the random man in the woods for the man versus bear conversation.
Yeah, that would probably be true, because I do floor climbs out there on the hill, and then I'm riding the bike off into the trails. And yeah, if I was doing floor climbs and you just saw me out there, yeah, it would appear that way.
Random man in the woods. There he is. Great comment. Great comment from the chat today. So I do really dislike the narrative that we're all doomed and the technology is going to doom us all, and everything is just worse than it was. There are some things certainly, as with all generations, that are bad, right? Like one of the things I know that's near and dear to Kat's heart is how our food is messed up.
Same.
However, it wasn't even 80 years ago that people were getting lead poisoning from canned food that were sealed with lead. So we can't ever say, well, it was so much better back whatever time period you pick. It's never going to be better than it is today for us.
We can cherry pick, and I think that's the issue. And I think a lot of times it's nostalgia or something, and we cherry pick when we say that. But we got to be able to admit we're cherry picking, right?
Well, a lot of it's first world problems, as the meme goes, right?
Right.
It's like, oh, the internet went out. Oh, it's just like, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, things can be difficult or bad. Things are never going to be easy. If they're easy, then what's the point? But like I said, I recognize the fact that I live a better, safer life than even emperors like 100 or so years ago. Right. I got better health care. Like, even if I get something bad happen to me, like, I can literally go to the emergency room, fill out a charitable care form, and get cared for, even if I'm broke and homeless. Right.
Sure.
That's how good the system is. Right. But a lot of people don't know these things. A lot of it is lack of perspective and ignorance.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here when it comes to this. Sorry about that.
No, you're
But
good. Go ahead, Adrian.
couple of things here. One, technology isn't the problem. It's what people bring into it. One, it's hubris, arrogance, and complacency that new technology brings with it is what makes technology look bad, but it's not the technology itself. Number one. Number two, people now, currently, like I said before, aren't reminded of what things used to be or trained in how things used to be. Advancement. Stand that advancement, right? You got to have a reflection point or knowledge of what it used to be and given a taste of what it used to be, so you can understand the luxury you live in now at the current time because of that technology. If you're given that, then you're in a place where you can be humble, virtuous, and use the technology you have today, understanding that it can go at any time. And if it does, that's fine, because we can move on still. We can still go forward. But while we're utilizing what we have and understanding how great it is, we can use that to make things for other people better around us. And that's what's lost right now. And I say this primarily has been lost on men's side of things. I'm not interested in women's side of things when it comes to that, because ultimately, as the men, our job is to enforce things for the better. And if we choose to enforce things for the worse because we've allowed ourselves to fall to hubris, arrogance, and complacency because of the advancements we've made, that falls on us. And that's just the way it is.
I like that. Kat, what do you think about that?
Real quick, I call it the hubris of man. I've dubbed it that for a long time now, right? We think we're simultaneously better and worse than we are, and we lack perspective.
Kat, what do you think about the last bit of that? He doesn't care what the women think.
I mean, that's fine. Okay.
Oh, I didn't mean that as you're less than or anything. It's just that when we talk about responsibility, I think that when we start talking about what we think about the women think all the time, that's when other men start to use that as an outlet to go, what about? And I don't like whataboutisms. Whataboutisms tend to lead to people just fighting over who's better than the other instead of cleaning their own houses first. Because you can't complain about how dirty someone else's house or yard is when your house and yard are a mess. So you want to avoid that by avoiding the whataboutisms. So it's not about, I don't care what women think. I didn't mean it that way. What I meant was in terms of when men are hashing out their issues, I'm not thinking about the woman's side of it. I'm thinking about the man's house and how we need to clean our house before we can move on to the women's house, the women's room. Can't go talk about cleaning the women's room and how dirty your room is if our room's a disaster.
I definitely think Kat would have agreed with you because she's very much along that mindset. That's why I asked her what she thought about it. Not that she would disagree. I never would think that she would disagree with what you said. Anson Knowles, welcome to the show. Good to have you on here. What's up, man? What do you think?
Well, yeah. This is my second time ever being on a StreamYard, so I don't know if y'all even hear me or not. Is my mic connection good?
Your connection's good. You're lagging a little bit, but that's okay. It'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah. No, I just I've been watching you for a while now, probably a couple of months. As soon as I got into Andrew Wilson and stuff, I started watching him on whatever, and I kind of got into this sphere through the I don't know how to put it, the libertarian to, I don't know what y'all consider yourselves, but whatever pipeline it is, where there are right libertarians, and y'all have a whole lot more in common with them than y'all put on, and it's kind of been off-putting ever since this whole Dave Smith debate's been announced, because y'all have been talking about anti-libertarian stuff, and there's more in common with them than y'all realize, I think. So
I have friends of mine that claim to be libertarian, but they're really conservatives. They just don't like to admit that they're conservatives. They're kind of embarrassed about the term. I I claim the term, and I claim the status of constitutional conservative, because I think libertarians are. I think a lot of libertarians are basically contrarians that just need something to label themselves as, and I could be wrong about that, but and I hope I am. I just don't. I've met very few libertarians that had good answers and can even define what a libertarian is. And if you can't define what it is very clearly in a couple of sentences, I don't really care. And I think that that's one of the I understand the need to call yourself something different than a conservative or a Republican or whatever. I understand that. I've never called myself a Republican. I vote Republican, but I've always considered myself as a constitutional conservative. This space that I operate in technically is the manosphere, although I myself do not prescribe to all of their tenets. It is the space that I operate in because I think that there's a lot of really good things about the manosphere, but there's a lot of things that need to be clarified and modified in the manosphere to make it better. And my real thing is that I've always considered myself a teacher of young men, even when I was building race cars. I actually approached the entire idea of my race team as I was teaching people how to be better people, and the racing was just how we got that done. And the better the people I built, the better we did, right? So, and I don't know why I feel that way. It's just the way I feel. I've got to, once again, I have my thing here. So you guys take it away for a minute. I will be right back. And you can argue about all the stuff I said. So
have you guys seen the quadrant graph for political ideology? Because
the political compass.
Yeah, where you've got, what is it, libertarian, authoritarian, liberal, and conservative, I guess, or the axes or whatever, or the quadrants.
Yeah, it's left and right, and authoritarian and libertarian are the four corners. It's actually more of a sphere than it is a square, but it's harder to articulate. Yeah.
It's kind of neat in that you can go back and it'll graph past presidents, and then you can answer questions that it'll graph you, and it's really interesting. And so we've gotten into a place, I think, where everybody wants to either put everybody in a box or kind of demand that somebody puts them in a box. And I'm not knocking on you, Anson, but it's always like, hey, where are you on that spectrum? Where are you on that graph? How is your political ideology? And it's something that I've learned. I mean, at one time I would tell you Republican, at one time I would tell you conservative, but I've come to a place that unless we're talking about a very specific issue, like, I don't know that I can't give you a box, because I'm in flux on so many different things at so many different times, and I have such different opinions. And I've even played that out. That's why I mentioned that graph. I've even played that out on that graph. Like, okay, where do I stand on this subject or that subject? And I'm all over the place. So it's really hard, to pin me down. And I think, I don't know why that is. I guess is why I'm bringing that up. Is that because I'm thinking more critically? Is that because I'm asking more questions? Is that because I'm absorbing more input from the world and society? Am I an anomaly, or are there more people out there that are like me? in that regard.
Well, that's where I kind of stand. I tell people, like, I'm a critically thinking, free thinking American, right? I don't try to put myself in a box or anything like that, because like you said, I look at individual issues, right? Because there's not, you can't, you throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. You can't say that I'm going to accept one bullshit stance lumped in with something that I want, right? There can be compromises, but that's a bullshit compromise when you take a bunch of bullshit that completely outbalances the one good thing that was done. You see this with a lot of these, shit that they put through Congress, right? It's just like they just put a bunch of shit in the bills and just try to sneak stuff in. It's just like, no, that's dirty pool. Right, you're not playing fair. You're trying to like shoehorn stuff in, and it's a shell game, right? It's a scam, more or less, right? It's trying to get stuff in there and get you confused and make it where there's no clarity, right? And the more confused and fighting we are, right, fighting amongst ourselves, the less we're going to pay attention to people shoehorning bullshit in, right? It's the magician's trick, right? Ooh, jingle, jingle, jingle. Pay attention over here. Boom, sleight of hand.
Yep. No, I agree.
Well,
Yeah,
I like what Clovertack was saying though about thinking he's an anomaly because he critically thinks. Because I've done a significant amount of political activism over the past decade, and talked to regular people, people who thought they were politically active, who just basically repeated talking points from the media and didn't actually think about the issues because most people's thoughts are only other people's words. And that's a really big problem, and something that y'all do different in the manosphere. I've noticed. I guess that's what this is that I've been getting interested in the past couple of months. But y'all actually sit down and argue about stuff and actually hurt each other's feelings, which doesn't happen anymore. So
Right.
So this is refreshing, y'all. I mean, I hadn't heard anything this offensive since Rush Limbaugh was on the radio. I mean, this is good stuff. So
Well,
Anyway,
soon enough, I'll have my obscene profit breaks. Don't worry, I'm getting there. I can get closer and closer. Well, we have to be.
I was gonna say that. Sorry, Greg.
Oh, that's all right.
I was gonna say that the manosphere and the Red Pill community. I said this yesterday in one of the streams. I forget which one. Men like me, men like Grid, men like Clover, men like Anson, men like us who have families or families beyond families already now. We're here to keep up with what's going on in this sphere, because one, you can learn from things, but like Grid said, there are things that can be modified and improved upon. At the same time, we also have skin in the game because we have sons and grandsons and daughters and granddaughters. So if we're not keeping up with what the modern sphere is in terms of relation dynamics for them, then when they come up to us as the elders, because as elders, our role is to be able to guide those future generations as long as we're still here and able to do so. If we can't do that because we're blinded by the past that we grew up in and we don't keep up on what's going on currently and in the future, we're going to fail as their elders, because we can't pass down wisdom to them if we haven't taken current knowledge and refined it into wisdom to help them continue and grow. So it's not because me or Grid or Clover particularly need the information from the manosphere as it exists now, because quite frankly, we don't now. We've done that already, been there, done that, but we do want to have it so we can help the future generations, not just within our own family, but maybe among others, to get this right and get better and stronger as they go.
It's a reference material, right? Like for
Yes.
me. And it's cool hanging out. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's the Grid and I obviously have a lot in common, and to the point that once I got to talking with Grid, and it was really crazy because you see Grid dropping all the massive, chats or whatever with on the whatever podcast and all of this, and then the next thing you know, I'm having a conversation, and we know we have friends in common. We know the same people, small world mentality. But it's not that we're here necessarily. I'm here, it's fun, and I like the perspectives, and I'm a big fan of trying to learn something new every day, right?
Yes, sir.
whatever that might be. It might be a
I learned
teeny
something new
tiny
every
thing
20
of,
minutes, man.
of I can tweak this recipe on this dish by adding a teaspoon of this, and it's much better. Like, but learn something new every single day, something. And so that's a lot of why this is not the first community or added niche or whatever it is that I've jumped over into and started playing around and kind of making friends with in. Because I like all the varying perspectives. It adds to my reference points and knowledge base, which is ultimately a good thing.
Yeah, I can't
Absolutely.
get corrected if I don't voice my opinions and ideas to other people. That might give me pushback, right? I get pushback all the time when I get into these spaces on my opinions, and that to me, like is the saying goes in the manosphere, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Right. You can't get corrected if you don't put your shit out there.
Well, if you don't talk to people, or at least listen, you don't even have to talk, like the folks out there in the chat right now, right, or whatever. Just being a spectator and listening. You learn things that help, because if you are not talking with people, absorbing what people are saying, listening to folks, then when you get into a conversation with somebody, maybe you're having some type of disagreement or something, you can, what is the word? You can preemptively sort of already be prepared for what they're going to say, right? Like their positions, and I'm not talking about necessarily in a structured debate, but just conversations at the grocery store or the PTA meeting or whatever it might be. And you kind of already have an idea of how you need to deal with those people, or where you need to take your arguments, which again is added value.
Mm-hmm.
And I can add to that my son, he regularly visits and calls and stuff, right? And he's married. He just got married recently, and then now they're going to have their first child with my daughter-in-law. And even up to this point, he still asks me about things regarding his relationship with his wife, right? And to be honest, when I look at it, based upon what I knew in the past, what I learned from my grandparents and my great-grandparents and my dad, to what is going on now, it is a good thing that I still kept my ear to the ground and stayed connected to the culture and the current climate of what's going on now, because I've been able to better guide him based upon the knowledge that I know now and I'm still currently keeping in touch with in this sphere, because that applies more to him now that he's in the grind of it than it does me, who I'm more outside of it, because I'm not actively in the relationship field. It'll help in some way, but at the end of the day, it helps me help him better. I could have just been that older fogey that just stayed away and exiled myself to my little plot of land and been left in peace, but I didn't do that.
So it's an interesting thing, and I've been saying this actually a lot the last week, and that is that regardless of our individual beliefs, right? Like we have down here, we have Viking, who has some, in my opinion, interesting relationship beliefs, and he's definitely got some different takes on the world. I have no problem conversing with him. He and I exchange ideas. If he doesn't like something I say, he'll tell me. If I don't like something he says, I can tell him. It's totally cool. We will be buddies at the end of the day. I don't know Anson that well, but Anson's made very good comments. He's okay.
Got a nice beard. He can't be all that bad.
Yeah. But first of all, you can only live so long in an echo chamber. And I put that up. He said that you can only learn so much in an echo chamber. I believe that you can only live so long in an echo chamber, because at some point you just kind of wither and die inside, and you just don't know anymore.
I think it's good. I think it's more like it will turn you to stone. Would be an analogy to whatever I would use.
I like that.
You're going to be so resistant to anything that's not, that's outside that echo chamber, and that's not a good place to be.
I don't have a problem specifically with liberals and leftists living their lives. I have a problem with them voting away my rights, and as long as they don't do that, I don't care what they do. They can go be the biggest degenerates on the planet. I don't care. Their bloodline ends, mine doesn't. I don't care what degenerates do. I only care when it comes into my realm and my sphere. And now when they're voting my rights away, now I have to care. When they're trying to put things that I don't agree with in my schools, my kids' schools. I don't like that. Now I have to care, and we should all care. But outside of those places, right, where outside of those points of convergence, why do you care? Why do I care? I don't care if Anson wants to be known as a libertarian and Clover wants to be a dyed-in-the-wool red Republican. Why do we disagree? As long as we're kind of going along the same route, why do we care?
Well,
why
labels.
Why does it have to be such a bone of contention that we fight to the death over it?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about the other day. People want to fight over the differences rather than, and they focus and fixate on that because of the negative cognitive bias that we have as humans.
Absolutely.
But the thing is that when you transcend that, use your higher evolved brain functions, engage your brain and use it, you can learn more things. I tell guys all the time, if you're not learning, you're losing. No losses, only lessons, right? But a lot of guys have the complete opposite mindset when it comes to dealing with people.
Yeah. And I might feel bad for you, if you're a guy that, thinks AKs work all the time, that's okay. You can be wrong.
Depends on the AK now, Grid. Come on. You know that.
Shots fired.
You're cherry picking again. And I'm not a big AK guy, but hey,
I just look, I have to throw grenades once in a while. Got to throw grenades once in a while. Yeah. But it's again, it's I don't have to like everything about everyone, and because I just don't care. And I think that that's what we've lost is and this is part of the the narrative idea of this entire show today is we're told that we should care. We're told that I have to care about Kat's relationship with her husband, which I don't. I don't care. I hope they have a good one, but beyond that, I don't really care. They could fight like cats and dogs.
Yeah, as long as they're not fighting on your lawn, it's all good.
Right, as long as it's not on my lawn, who cares? Get off my lawn.
But grid labels matter, and that's one of the things the manosphere talks about is how people identify themselves is actually based in something real, right? And so you identify yourself as a constitutional conservative, that's a signal to me that you're probably an all right guy most of the time in terms of not wanting to take away my rights. Now, me saying I'm a libertarian should prompt you to say, what kind? Because there's the crazy hedonists.
I have to say what kind.
yeah, because there's the crazy hedonists and then there's the normal ones, right? And
well, I think there's like four other type, but okay,
yeah. So, some of them are there just for self gratification, and others are there because they think people ought to be left alone, and not necessarily that if you don't have the right to act like a fool, then you're not free. That's basically it. But labels are important, and it's not that we have to fight just because we have different labels, just so long as we recognize that we're on the same team overall. I think that's what you're trying to say.
I think that labels can be important, but I don't ask for pedigree. I don't care. I judge a man by his actions. I judge a man by his words. I don't really care too much about pedigree. Which I kind of think puts me at a disadvantage sometimes because people can fake it quite a bit,
Yeah, but you can tell pedigree by words and actions a lot of time. I mean, I call it the Walmart observation. That's what I almost call it. Like, I hate going to Walmart except for one reason, and that's watching other people. Beautiful place to observe humanity is Walmart. At least around here. May not be in other parts of the country, and you may have some other chain store that works. But just walking around and observing how people move and their body language and how they speak and how they act and how they dress and just all of this other stuff. So, and that gives you it starts to give you the ability, if you get practiced in that, like you're talking about, you can listen to somebody, you can have a conversation with somebody, you can be around somebody for a fairly short period of time, and you pretty much can guess their pedigree at that point. Like, you may not know that the guy graduated law school, for example, but you're going to know that they dabbled in law at some point, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like the book analogy a lot because people always say, "Oh, you can't judge a book by its cover." It's just like, but the point of a book cover is to give you a lot of basic, useful
You can tell
information
whether I
about
want to
what the
pick it
book.
up, right?
You if you want to tell what somebody's about, right? Use the book analogy, right? You need to read the cover, right? Then flip it over, maybe see a picture of the author and a short synopsis, and then you can open it up if you want that pedigree, right? If you want to see like the full information, and it's up to you how deep you go. But that's a personal choice. Like, if you really want to get to know the person, like if you really want to read a book, like, hey, I like the book cover. The book cover sounds good. Let me check it out more. Let me see some more about the author on the back, and then let me open it up and read. But if it's a book that you don't want to read, right? Maybe you just look at it once and be like, no, thank you, and put it down, right? That's the book analogy. And I think if a lot of people adopted that mental model when dealing with people, right, you can't always judge the full book by its cover, but you can get a lot of useful information, and you need both to get full context.
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, you can't tell a book by its cover, but you can tell whether you want to pick it up or not.
Yep.
So
yeah,
and a lot of really
labels
good
are useful
with bad
right?
covers. You can never get
right
picked
if you pick up a jar, right, and there's no label on it, but it's like you might be able to tell what's in it, but you're not going to know for sure, right? A label can usually give you a heads up, like, hey, this is spaghetti sauce, not jam, right? You don't want to put the spaghetti sauce on your sandwich, you want to put the jam on the PB&J, right? So a label is going to help you to ascertain the choice, right? So just some of these basic principles, yeah, labels are very useful, but how do you apply them? Are you applying a label for identification and sorting purposes, or are you doing it to try to be like, well, in a tribalistic way? Like, that's where a lot of people, I think, go wrong, is they're trying to go back to that tribalism of like, well, you're in that tribe, which is not my tribe, so now we're fighting. And it's just like, come on.
Well, and back to my point about it, and yours too, backing with individual issues. If I've got a sports card collection, a record collection, a stamp collection, all of that stuff is not labeled as one big collection, right? Like, those labels are broken down according to, even within the specific collection itself, may be broken in. Maybe the sports cards are broken in further with labels by year or player, right? I was trying to give an analogy that it's not a catch-all, one label on the entire collection type situation. But they are important. I agree, labels in that context can be important.
Guys, let's I'm actually going to have to wrap up here in a few minutes, so I'm going to redirect the chat somewhere. I've got the mods looking for a live stream to redirect. Probably, I'm sure Speakeasy or Glenn are live right now. We'll just get you guys over there. Maybe Andrew. Andrew's been streaming around noon lately, so but at any rate, it's been a really good discussion today. I think that one thing is that we really, as people, we have to start looking beyond narratives, finding facts for ourselves. A lot of us already do this. Some of us don't. And we just take what people tell us as fact. And we never should do that. I don't think. Even when people tell me something, it's like, okay, on the face of it, that seems true. But generally, I kind of double check for myself. As much as you can. I mean, obviously, we don't know that Kat's husband's not secretly a prisoner in his own house because I haven't gone there to see, but it's not really that important to me. And he seems fine. So
he didn't
we only have
twice
her
when he
word
was on
though.
camera the other day, so I'm pretty sure he's safe.
I didn't see any shackles or hear a ball and chain dragging across the floor.
Yeah,
the other day,
yeah.
So
Didn't look that drugged up, so
he wasn't wearing orange to my knowledge, so I think he's good.
But and that's a little bit of, I'm having a little bit of fun there with Kat. But I think just the narratives that we're fed now are so common we don't even notice them, and it's the most common tactic, right?
Yeah, they're
Is that
extremely
something?
divisive too. That's the key thing. They're very divisive. They
Yeah,
want
they're
to
meant
be,
to be
this or
divisive.
that, and now fight.
Yeah, that's right. I
That's
think that's very interesting. Oh, that's the wrong
so
button.
that's something that I've brought up, kind of being the new kid on the block. Is that, you know, I come into this, whether it's, you know, whether it's here or Andrew or Speakeasy or Tomato or whichever one happens to be Upper Glen, and it's like it starts out with a premise, like the whole panel agrees on this premise, like it's almost an echo chamber, and then 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours is spent on like 1% of disagreement. You know what I mean? Trying to hash that out. Um, yeah, it goes back to just kind of what's cool about this space, I guess. But it's also good to have, rather than arguments about the 1%, it's also really good to have conversations about the 99%. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all information's important. Like I said, knowledge is power, right? They say, oh, the pen is mightier than the sword, but knowledge is what allows you to wield both the pen and the sword correctly. So knowledge is the true power, and there's no bad knowledge. Some of it might be uncomfortable. Some of it might be gross, right? Like certain things that I know about parasites and shit like that from, being taught survival tactics and shit like that, cleaning your water, right? Some of that shit can be really gross. Field dressing a deer, that's really gross. But the thing is, that's extremely useful knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so it might be uncomfortable for you, but knowing, back to the GI Joe, knowing is half the battle. GI Joe,
That's right.
that's a real factor. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Yeah, I go with that. I think that that's true. I think that there's a lot that we take for granted that we know or don't know. Or we assume that we know. How about that? We assume that we know it. And I still go back to this idea that the left is lied to by and fed a specific narrative. The center is lied to and fed a specific narrative, and the right is lied to and fed a specific narrative, all designed to constantly keep everyone arguing all the time. And I say that because, like my grandfather, I remember my grandfather, pretty much a Democrat. All of his friends were Republicans. They never really argued. It was okay. It was, I don't think that it was ever a big deal, So I don't know. I think it's,
Yes, when we were tricked to ignoring the context and the nuance, where you won't even have the conversation with the person because they're different viewpoints. You just shut them out. And now all of a sudden, anytime you encounter somebody like that, you just fight, and then break. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, but there's no resolution. There's never a conclusion. It's just always a perpetual state of fighting over differing ideas. But the thing is, you don't realize, because you didn't have that conversation, you agree on way more than you thought. Right? It's like a good example. You mentioned Speakeasy before, right? He just hit 5K last night, subscribers, right? And I was tuned in for that. But if you remember, like, we were just having a really heated debate the other day where we're going back and forth about like banning porn and shit like that. Right. And we're all like kind of agreeing, but we disagree with the methods and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, we're friends, we're having good conversations. And even if we don't have a resolution, we know where the other man stands then, so we can respect him at least.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think there's two sides to that. What you mentioned, Maggie, there's the fight, but there's also the flight, right? So there's avoidance that, if you have that experience, instead of getting locked into that fight, you just, or that conversation, right? That's what we're calling the fight. You just walk away, right? And I think a lot of people get hung up on and I just know this from the activism side in my space, they get way too hung up in changing the mind of the person that they're having the debate or the conversation or whatever it is with.
Yep.
Rather than, and especially when you're online and you have any type of viewership out there, whether it's 10 viewers, 20 or 20,000, the focus needs to be that you make your case, you have the conversation, you lay it all out, you shore up your positions, whatever, not to try to sway your opponent, quote unquote opponent, but so that those watching that interaction, right, get the most information possible for them to make a decision around their positions and where they stand.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
and
think
that's the true
I
purpose
think
of
I think
debate.
it often gets personal, right? Like one
Yeah.
dude against the other dude, and that's all that matters. And it's like even if you got a heavyweight boxing match, okay, they get the win notch, they get the belt, but ultimately it's all the folks watching pay per view, right? It's all the folks in the venue that are there watching it live. It's a form of entertainment for all the people around. So yeah, don't lose sight of the fact that all eyes are on you when things like that are happening.
Yeah, well, that's that outcome dependence that I was talking about. Like, there's
Yeah.
two things. I talked about this before. I look for people that are outcome independent and people that have an abundance mindset, because I see all the time that the people that have that scarcity mindset and they're outcome dependent tend to be the people that aren't willing to change their mind at all or even hear the argument, right? So when I go into a debate, I'm not trying to necessarily change the other person's mind. I'm trying to explore their ideas to see if I can change my mind, because I'm a stubborn motherfucker. You're going to need to convince me with some real fucking facts and evidence to get me to switch up my position. Otherwise, I'm just going to agree to disagree. But that's where I try to switch up the goal rather than being dependent on trying to change the other person's mind. I just try to curiosity, explore the idea of if my mind can be changed about something. And I'm just not going to do it easily.
Well, and sometimes minds can be changed without being changed immediately. So
Yeah,
there could
exactly.
be, and I see this in the 2A side a lot. You can have this conversation, and then you've had this conversation with somebody. They've been totally resistant. They've stonewalled. It's like they're not even listening. It's like you're talking to a fence post. And then 6 months down the road, something happens in their life. And usually it's a horrible thing, right? They've been had a home burglary. They've been carjacked. Something goes south. And what happens? Their mind goes back to the conversation, to the debate, whatever you want to call it, that we had, where it's like, hey, your personal security is your responsibility, right? And they go, hey, I had this
True.
conversation. Now this has happened, so I can relate to it. And it completely changes their position. But that's 6 months down the road. That's not in the moment that we're having the conversation.
Yeah, fun
Yeah.
fact. You should
I
say
like
that
that.
because anecdotally, yesterday I was on a panel with Glenn and Base Oracle pulled up, right, and we ended up agreeing on a whole bunch of shit. Imagine that.
Yeah, I'd like to answer
That's
that
interesting
question.
you say that, because I actually agree with a lot. Almost like most of what Based Oracle says, I agree with. It's some of it's his delivery, I think, but mostly it's this. I don't understand this really weird nonsense that he has going on with Andrew, and I don't get it. So,
Well, with me, he's always taking shots at my friend Walter, right? And the thing is that I know that that's just trying to get a rise out of me. And the thing that I thought was really interesting, it wasn't so much like I don't always disagree with him. It's just that he's always disagreed with me on like 90% of things that I say. But yesterday, like he was, Glenn would turn it over to him and be like, well, what do you think about what Viking said? And he'd just be like, I agree. And then it's just like crickets. And then, like Glenn's like, well, shit, I thought there was going to be like a fireworks show or something like that. Well, damn.
Yeah, and I think what gets lost here in these conversations is that you have the minimal standard that you should have coming into conversations like this, whether there's an audience or not, is clarity over agreement. That should be the base standard for any conversation or debate. Clarity over agreement. If you could abide by that and understand that going into any conversation you go into, you will achieve a lot more in terms of perspective and understanding than any other way or any other standard that you uphold in a conversation. If you can do that, you will get a lot further in these spaces, or even in your personal life, even with contentious conversations with family members and friends. If you go into it with that, you will gain a lot more ground on both sides of that conversation than not.
Yeah. Real quick, I appreciate one of the things that one of my friends from the Fresh and Fit Discord, we disagree all the time, but he always has this framework. If he tries to go into every conversation assuming the other person knows something he doesn't and try to figure out what it is that they know that he doesn't. And I love that framework because that it automatically humbles you, because you're automatically, looking at the situation like, hey, I could actually get something valuable out of this that the other person has, and I just don't know what it is. And sometimes, a lot of times, in fact, it doesn't necessarily turn out that way. But you don't know until you put in the effort.
That's true. True.
Yeah, I'd like to answer that question, Green.
Anybody live to redirect anyone to? It's like dead air out there. I'm sorry. The people I can redirect, or the people that are live right now, they're not open for redirect, so I can't send them anybody. Guys, I got to punch out. I've got to get ready. I got to take my kid to shotgun practice, and we're gonna go. He's gonna go break some targets. To everyone that showed up today, really appreciate you guys coming out, and I'm really appreciative of all the people who came up on the panel today. It's really impromptu and always appreciated when we get people up to talk about various topics. I hope everybody liked the show today, and if any of you guys need to shout out your channel or something, I know that the mods have been spamming, I think, Clover Tack and Viking, Anson, or
I would be more than happy, since there's a question for Anson on the screen, to concede my time to Anson to answer that.
Okay. Anson, what?
Yeah, it's the Republican Party is an organization revolved around gaining power. It doesn't actually have views except for what views it needs to obtain that power. That being said, the Republican Party has libertarians in it, like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul.
That was quicker than I expected.
That was very concise. It was very concise. I liked it.
Yeah.
Based Oracle is in the house. Again, like I said, I don't really have anything that I think Based and I agree on like a ton. But it's just this thing with Andrew that we disagree on. I don't know. Which is fine. It'll be great. Guys, I've really got to go and be late. I'm going to be late. But that's all right.
Get out of here, man. Get out of here. Don't let us hold you up.
Yep.
Yeah,
you guys,
let us hold you up, man.
gonna have to go away. Get off my lawn. All that nonsense. We'll see you later. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.
All right, Greg.